Welcome to the Vault XL. Thank you for joining me. Happy Friday. Please have a safe weekend. Try to stay hydrated because it is very hot and humid in a lot of states. So please stay hydrated. Be aware of your surroundings. Thank you for joining me. This is a two-part live pertaining to Bryan Kohberger and a 14-year-old who was prompted through a YouTube challenge to conduct a Kidnap hoax, and we can thank Miss Carly Russell for that. But nonetheless, I won't make excuses for an adult doing something that they knew better to do, but children do mimic adults. But was this child a troublemaker? Stayed in trouble? What will we find out about the 14-year-old? Naturally, we won't get a name because children's names are redacted from public information to protect their identities and privacy, which some may say, why should their name be protected if they're out here doing wrongdoing, mischief? So will we find out this 14-year-old girl has been in trouble before? As I said, is a little troublemaker. One person in the comment section says she shouldn't be tried as an adult. But I'd like to find out more about the 14-year-old before I cast judgment on what her punishment should be. Please go to my community board to take the poll. What should her punishment be? Tried as a juvie? Probation? Tried as an adult? Let's talk about Mr. Bryan Kohberger. He's a busy bee. He and his defense team. He has a stay right now. He wants the grand jury indictment thrown out. He and his defense team. He's also saying he has an alibi and evidence was planted by the police, which is hogwash. Let's get to Mr. Kohberger. Thank you for joining me, everybody. News Nation is the source.
I want to bring in now attorney and News Nation legal analyst Jesse Weber. Jesse, it's always good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Good to see you as always.
What do you make of the defense suggesting that DNA evidence may have been planted by police or by a worker of the crime lab? Is that strategy likely to work?
It's quite a claim. I'd like to see them actually make it. Look, do we see shoddy police work? Do we see contaminated crime scenes? Absolutely. We see it in cases across the country. The real thing to remember here with Bryan Kohberger is it's not like he's accused of killing his wife and, maybe his DNA was placed somewhere that it shouldn't be, or maybe it should be expected. He is a complete stranger to these four victims. So the question you have to ask yourself is, why would his DNA end up there? And why would someone plant it there? Because then it becomes the question, well, if investigators did this, did they first have his DNA and then by accident mix it with the knife sheet? There's parts of this that don't make 100% of sense.
Let me interject right there. If you are not known to the victims at the time of the discovery of the bodies, how would your evidence be there to be planted? No one knew you and no one knew you as a suspect. You don't live in the town where the girls and the young man lived. You didn't go to school with them. You weren't friends with them or any of their associates, allegedly. So how would your DNA get planted on the knife sheath? Very good point. Can't plant something when we don't even know who you are. Mr. Kohberger, you're not so smart. And you need to stop trying to play armchair detective. You are now incarcerated. You need to accept your fate, sir. Yes, you do.
There's parts of this that don't make 100% of sense. But if they're going to be arguing that there was shoddy police work, that's one thing. But to argue it was planted there,
exactly,
that's a very big claim. And remember, they're fighting this on two grounds. It's not just the court of law, but it's the court of public opinion. Everybody has Bryan Kohberger dead to rights. He's also entitled to a defense. So they're trying to defend him in a PR move as well.
I have one more question about this. Is the defense team in this case allowed to just bring this up and plant this idea without having any evidence of this whatsoever? Or are they only allowed to bring this up if they're able to say, and we have evidence that it was actually planted?
Well, there's a thing to say that they have an idea of where they're going and then what they actually tell the court and what actually they can put forward as evidence at trial. Alex was talking about the potential of an alibi defense. Well, in that state, you can't just say an alibi defense. You need to say where is the time and the place that really Bryan Kohberger was, and you have to actually list out your witnesses that are going to support that. And it seems they're kind of playing catch up right now. Maybe Kohberger told them where he was or what his alibi is, and they're trying to prove it. So there's one thing to say it right now, but down the line, they're going to actually need to back it up.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget.
So who is your alibi, Mr. Kohberger? Seems like to me that would be something, that would have been something you would have been yelling from the rooftops in the beginning. It wasn't me. I don't know them. I didn't commit this crime. I have an alibi. I was with Sheila, Rodney, Bob, Joe. You get my drift. You didn't even talk to anybody. You didn't fraternize with anybody. You had short conversations with neighbors, colleagues. So who were you spending your time with, Mr. Kohberger? And as one person has said in commentary, most of us will not have an alibi 24 hours a day because a lot of us are single. We stay to ourselves. We do things by ourselves. We sleep alone. So we don't need an alibi. You only need an alibi when, yes, somebody comes knocking saying, hey, I think you did something, or I have proof you did something. So who is the alibi? Who is the alibi? Will they speak, come forward, or will it be somebody make believe that this defense team will have to go searching through the night for some made up person? Let me guess, you're going to say you were out at a bar hanging around and met some girl, you had a one-night stand, you went to her place, blah, 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 but she doesn't exist. How about that? Kohberger, have you had sex since you moved to the Pacific Northwest? I'm curious. Because you've got your defense team doing a lot of footwork on your behalf, knowing you're guilty. But anyway, and that is my opinion. Have you had sexual relations with a human being since you touched down on Washington soil? That's what I'd like to know. Are you gay or are you bisexual? Because we know you don't like women, really. You hate women. You hate women because they don't pay you any attention. So do you have any gay tendencies, bisexual tendencies? I'm just curious. Because you're a woman hater. That's obvious. That's why those kids are dead. Because you're a woman hater. And now you've got these people running around with looking like chickens with their heads cut off on imaginary information. And if I didn't know any better, I think you might know Carly Russell. Maybe you two know each other. She likes to make up stuff. Now we've got a 14-year-old kid making up stuff. It's amazing how lies get started, isn't it? Because it shows you how tainted people are. He's tainted. Possibly was a tainted child, tainted teenager, tainted adult. Boom. Here's your murderer. Carly Russell, tainted, tainted, tainted. Boom. Tainted adult. Now we have a 14-year-old. We can only imagine what her life is going to be like now after making up this wild story, because eventually her name will get out to the public some type of way. Somebody's going to tell it. And that will follow her. Oh, that's the girl that made up that story after that black lady made up a kidnap hoax. So you'll be known as the white version of Carly Russell, just a baby version. But this is what people do with their time. And this is what I try to tell children. You want to try your best to stay out of trouble because it can follow you. It's not to say you can't turn out to be a decent teenager, adult, but your sins can follow you. You may turn out to be a law-abiding citizen, but your past can follow you. And that's what people need to understand. Doesn't matter what you did yesterday, 10 years ago. You may not be doing those things now, but they can follow you to where people distrust you. Is it fair? Of course it's not fair. But people are entitled to their opinion of you, whether they know you or not. You have a long rap sheet of committing crimes. What makes you think a person's going to think you're still not doing those things? That's the way it is. I'm going to bring you commentary number 2 pertaining to Mr. Kohberger. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are welcome during the live stream. This is a 2-part live, everybody. I'm a little late with this Kohberger information, so bear with me. News Nation is the second source. Idaho College killings. Bryan Kohberger's lawyers asked judge to dismiss the indictment. This was uploaded 14 hours ago. Thank you so much. I must say, he's very brazen. He and his attorney, Miss Taylor.
Killing 4 Idaho college students. His lawyers now calling for the grand jury indictment to be thrown out altogether. In a just released motion, Kohberger's attorneys say the grand jury was, quote, misled as to the standard of proof required for an indictment. Prosecutors used a grand jury earlier this year to indict Kohberger instead of what's called a preliminary hearing, where a judge would hear evidence and determine if there's enough case to go to trial. Either one is acceptable under Idaho law. But Kohberger's lawyers argue the grand jury should have been instructed that the standard of proof based on what was presented to them is, quote, beyond a reasonable doubt, meaning a very high standard. They weren't. They say instead they were given a much lower standard, just, quote, a reasonable ground for believing that a particular individual has committed a certain offense. It makes a huge difference. Now, if true, that would mean the grand jury was told they could indict on a lower standard of proof. Now the defense wants the indictment thrown out or for the judge to order a preliminary hearing. Now, this motion comes just days after Kohberger's defense team filed paperwork saying that if the case does go to trial, they intend to present an alibi. It's a requirement in Idaho to inform the court of that. His attorney writing evidence corroborating Mr. Kohberger being at a location other than the King Road address will be disclosed pursuant to discovery and evidentiary rules, as well as statutory requirements. The document stops short of saying where Kohberger was at the time of the killings, because, of course, that's the question we'd all like to know the answer to. Instead, saying that evidence of an alibi, quote, may be offered through cross-examination of state's witnesses and defense experts. Facing 4 counts of first-degree murder, stabbing deaths of Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonsalves, Xander Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. Convicted, he could face death by firing squad because of a recent change in Idaho state law. Joining us now, Jesse Weber, attorney and host on the Law and Crime Network and a News Nation legal contributor, and Jeanette Levy, a correspondent and host for the Law and Crime Network. Both have been following this case closely. All right, Jesse, let's start with this motion to throw out the case. Lay out what is the defense's argument.
Okay, so it's a really interesting argument. They are looking at a statute that's been on the books in Idaho since the beginning. And what this statute basically says is a grand jury can only come back with an indictment if they look at all the evidence and, quote, if it would warrant a conviction by a trial jury. And then they go through a long history lesson about what case law says and what statute says. And they say that language means beyond a reasonable doubt.
Much higher standard.
A much higher standard. And they say, listen, if that's the case, and this jury wasn't read the proper standard, it has to be thrown out.
And what do you make of the argument?
It's interesting because what are we in 2023? Why has this not been resolved beforehand? Now, I did a little research.
Yeah.
There were courts that asked this question before, but it never came to a consensus. They cited some of those cases before. The most interesting argument that they put forward is they cited a statute that was put on the books by the Supreme Court, or was interpreted by the Supreme Court. And that statute basically says what you just said before. Mm-hmm. A grand jury can come back when you find probable cause. Their argument is that's not valid. You go with the old statute, and they think that trumps it.
And Jeanette, I'm going to be asking you about the alibi primarily, but anything you want to add on this breaking news of this motion that was just released?
I reviewed it and found many things that Jesse already covered, and the fact that they do cite the Supreme Court saying that all they have to do is find probable cause to indict. But it is an interesting argument. I don't think it's going to fly, though. I just don't think this is going to happen. I think it's clear the defense wanted a preliminary hearing in this case.
Yeah.
They wanted to be able to question and cross-examine some of these witnesses before trial.
Yeah. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation.
News Nation is the source. Number 2. Let's talk about what the real deal is. Miss Taylor is just upset because she didn't get a chance to talk to the witnesses, cross-examine the witnesses pertaining to the state, which would be the girl who says she saw a bushy-eyed guy walk by her in the house, Miss Dillon. That's what this is about. She wanted to be able to talk to the witnesses, whoever had anything to say pertaining to Kohberger and evidentiary material. Thank you, Bella. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me. Thank you all for joining me in the chat. That's what this is about. She's upset because she and her team did not get to talk to any of the witnesses for the state. So they want that grand jury decision thrown out. Higher standard, blah, blah, blah. Just a bunch of legal jargon for I'm angry because I didn't get to talk to anybody testifying for the state against Mr. Kohberger. Because we already know that those people probably didn't want to be cross-examined by the defense anyway. Dillon and whomever else is involved in this case. And that's what this is about. She didn't get to talk to them. She didn't get to cross-examine them, ask them questions. But let me tell you something, Miss Taylor. Nobody's throwing out anything. His DNA is on the sheath. And just because you think that's just a little bit of evidence that it's not valid, well, it's valid enough considering they haven't brought forward any information to say he's their friend, friend of theirs, friend of a friend. He frequented the house. Yeah, they knew him. So it is what it is, lady. And as far as evidence being planted by the police, as I said earlier, if you have no ties to these people, this house, why would your DNA be on a sheath that holds the knife lying in the bed with 2 dead people? I'll wait. Knife missing? Yes. Where is it? I have no idea. But point being, you're new to the area. You're not from Idaho. You're not from Washington. You're not friends with any of the kids. You're not friends with any of their friends. Why would your DNA be on a damn knife sheath in the bed with 2 dead people? Make it make sense. And how can the police plant something when they didn't even know who the suspect was? That's the whole point. You don't know them. So DNA this, DNA that. How would it get into a lab to be cross-contaminated with other evidence when you haven't allegedly committed any other crimes for your DNA to have been taken? Your DNA would have already had to been taken by law enforcement and taken to a lab for another crime to be cross-contaminated. See, that makes no sense. You're grasping at straws. You're trying to come up with any way to get out of this. Well, there's no wiggling room. The only wiggling room would be somebody on the jury panel that decides to hang a jury or say he's not guilty. And they can get quite a few people on the jury to say the same thing. That's where your wiggle room will come in. That's the sad information on Bryan C. Kohberger. He's trying to hold out, prolonging this case to get to trial, wanting the grand jury indictment thrown out, and also says he has an alibi, and also says the police basically planted evidence. So once again, how would that be possible when nobody knew you, nobody knows you, knew you at the time? Makes no sense. No sense whatsoever. And as I said, as far as the grand jury, Ms. Taylor's just angry because she did not get a chance to talk to the witnesses. pertaining to the state. And who is your alibi? Nobody. Because I'd like to see a person jump up and down to say, yes, I was with Kohberger that night into the morning. We were having tea or breakfast, or we were watching a Netflix movie. You would have already brought that information day one, Mr. Kohberger, to stop the BS. Subject number 2, which is my primary subject of the hour. A 14-year-old has decided to play mind games with the public of a kidnap hoax. Why? Let me guess. You heard about Carly Russell and you decided to enact you a hoax of a friend being kidnapped. You know that was not a nice thing to do, Miss Lady. And naturally at 14, you may not get any jail time. You may not have to stay in juvenile detention, but something bad is going to happen to you down the road because somebody's going to get a hold of your government name and it's going to get out to the general public because somebody's going to put your name out there. And you may not have such a good time after this. Will the state make your parents pay any type of penalties? Fines? Because guess what? We do have laws where, hey, your children get into trouble, they do things, they hold the parents liable for the children's crimes, such as vandalism, theft, civil suits. People civilly sue others because of things that their children did. Let me bring you the said information. Thank you for joining me. God bless America. WKMG News 6, Click Orlando is the source.
County, an 11-year-old is facing a list of charges, including a felony for a fake phone call. Police say she called 911 to report a kidnapping.
Well, I thought they said 14-year-old.
The sheriff's office says its deputies, along with officers from Edgewater, New Smyrna Beach, and Port Orange, joined in the search for the made-up suspect. They say they even put up their air unit, all for a hoax. Now, this is at least the second time this month this has happened in Volusia County. Earlier this month, a fake emergency call to a home in Deltona ended up with a SWAT training their gun on an innocent man. News 6's Treasure Roberts is live outside the Volusia County Sheriff's Office for us tonight. Treasure.
Ginger, Eric, Sheriff Mike Chitwood takes these fake calls very seriously. They can lead to big consequences, even for kids.
Stay calm. You can talk to your parents. We can open the window and let you talk to them. Nothing's going to happen to you.
The Volusia County Sheriff's Office says an 11-year-old girl was arrested Wednesday after texting 911 about a fake abduction.
You're going to take this as a lesson at 11 years old that if you do something stupid in the future, you're going to enjoy those cuffs.
Deputies said the girl told dispatchers her friend had been kidnapped by an armed man near Oak Hill, and she was following in a vehicle. That prompted several deputies and police officers from 3 different agencies to search for the kidnapper. But when they tracked the girl's cell phone, it led them back to her Port Orange home where she was safe with family. She confessed she got the idea from a YouTube challenge, thinking it would be funny.
Walk this way, right here. Come here. Keep your hands up.
A similar incident happened in Deltona last week.
We got a call that said that someone came home from work, shot their wife, tied the kids up, and was going to light their house. Oh my God.
Deputies searched the home, finding no evidence of a crime. Volusia County Sheriff Mike Chitwood says these calls are typically about public places, and some are threats to schools during the school year. Now they're happening to residents.
And these idiots that make these calls, they either want to harass the person who they're making the call on, or they're hoping that the police or the homeowner make a fatal mistake.
The sheriff says this is dangerous and warns parents to closely monitor their kids' social media usage. The sheriff's office is hosting several community forums to help parents protect their kids from internet dangers. The first forum is on Monday, and you can find a full schedule on our website at clickorlando.com. In Volusia County, Treasurer Roberts getting results. News 6.
So my title says 14-year-old because the article I pulled up said 14. So here in this article, it says 11 years old. I don't know what is the truth. Anyway, the 11-year-old girl was arrested Wednesday after texting 911 about a fake abduction, according to the Volusia County Sheriff's Office. In a release, deputies said the girl told 911 her friend had been kidnapped by an armed man driving a white van on southbound I-95 in Oak Hill. Let's get more information pertaining to this fake crime. Thank you for joining me. See if we can get it right. The information. So it did say 11-year-olds. I don't know where I got 14 years old for some reason. CBS News is the source. An 11-year-old girl was taken into custody, handcuffed outside her home in Central Florida on Wednesday after reporting in detail the fake abduction of her 14-year-old friend. I guess that's where I got the 14 years old. I will change that number in the title. The girl, who faces felony and misdemeanor charges, later told law enforcement that a YouTube challenge inspired her to carry out the 9/11 hoax, which she thought would be funny, according to the Volusia County Sheriff's Office. She said her friend was kidnapped by an armed man driving a white van, authorities said, but with deputies and officers from multiple police departments were deployed along with an aviation crew to search for the vehicle. No van was found. Authorities say the girl continued to text law enforcement with updates about the fake kidnapping over the next hour and a half. Those updates included a description of the male suspect that he had a gun. According to the sheriff's office, she is charged with making a false police report involving the use of a firearm in a violent manner, which is a felony, and misuse of a 911, which is a demeanor. Sheriff's deputies arrested the girl outside of her family's home in Port Orange, just a few miles south of Daytona Beach. Deputies identified the property by tracking the child's cell phone, which she had used to send a text message to 911 earlier that morning, reporting that her 14-year-old friend had been abducted and she was following in a blue Jeep. So she sent a text message to 911 earlier that morning, reporting that, the 14-year-old had been abducted in a blue Jeep. The Volusia County Sheriff's Office said in a statement shared to Facebook. I didn't even know you could send a text message to the 911 that I remember. Anyway, the Sheriff's Office also posted body camera video footage of the arrest to its Facebook page. In the footage, 4 uniformed officers surround the girl in the yard outside of her family's home while she stands handcuffed in the driveway with her face blurred. The girl sounds upset as she says, "I'm not going to do this again." An officer tells her, "This is going to be an opportunity for you to turn this into a learning experience." The girl was processed following her arrest at the county's Family Resource Center before ultimately being transferred to the Volusia Regional Juvenile Detention Center. This kind of prank activity is dangerous. We're going to investigate every incident, but today it wasted valuable resources that might have helped someone else who legitimately needed our help, Volusia County Sheriff Mike Chitwood said in a statement. The Sheriff's Office said it plans to host 5 upcoming community forums over the next month to help parents protect their kids from internet dangers. The first one is scheduled for Monday. Fraudulent 911 calls placed by teenagers and young adults are on the rise in the U.S., the Associated Press reported in March, citing federal investigators. These hoaxes and their link to online networking platforms have gained notoriety in recent years, partly in connection with swatting. When someone places a false 911 report with the aim of sending a SWAT team to someone else's home as a prank. The video game Call of Duty, which allowed players to meet online and play against one another, became associated with swatting after one infamous hoax turned deadly in 2017. CBSNews.com is the source. So naturally, we don't have a name because she's underage. So we have an 11-year-old saying her 14-year-old got kidnapped. What I'm wanting to know is, did she give the 14-year-old's name? Did this 11-year-old give police the 14-year-old's legal government name? And is the 14-year-old in cahoots with this crime? Or this girl just did this on her own, made up a name or gave her name? I don't know. I'll wait to see what is brought forward about the 14-year-old's legal name, if there was a real name given. And why do this? YouTube challenge or not, it's bullshit. Why are you doing this? I just got an update. Hoover police holding 1 p.m. news conference on Carly Russell. So that would be at 2 Eastern Standard Time because we are an hour ahead of Alabama. So I'll be back on here shortly, I guess. Let me check my watch to see what time it is. Well, it's 12:04. I have to hurry up and end this live stream in a little while. Anyway, I can't even get my gatherings because there's so much going on outside. It's like, man, this is crazy. Why do it? Why even have a YouTube challenge? What type of wacko challenges anyone with a pulse to make up anything to call 911? Let's start with you. Whoever did the YouTube challenge, started the YouTube challenge, social media challenge. What in the hell are you thinking? What is wrong with you? What is your damn problem? Why do you think this is okay behavior? To put this information out to people who obviously are mentally deranged, troublemaking children, vulnerable children, because a lot of people cannot think for themselves. This is something I see all the time. I'm around adults who can't think for themselves, don't know how to make rational decisions for themselves. So when you have vulnerable children, kids who like to stay in the trouble, they like to be followers, this is all they need. This is why, like they said, you've got to teach your children right from wrong. Don't do that. Don't touch that. Don't go over there. Don't be with these type of people. Don't hang with these type of people. You're somewhere where you don't feel comfortable. They're asking you to do something. Don't do it. They're asking you to say something. Don't do it. You've got to teach your children to be independent individuals. That's really what's wrong with the world. People don't want to tell their children right from wrong. A lot of you act just as goofy as your damn kids. We expect your kids to do stupid stuff, but they need to learn by an example. They need a mentor. They need somebody to tell them this isn't right. Be kind to others. Help the little old lady across the street. Don't drink. Don't use drugs. Don't take pills. Don't follow in behind people. Don't use harsh commentary. Don't bully other people. Don't torture animals. You've got to have somebody to teach these kids these things. If not, they'll just be out here doing any damn thing. And then they grow up to be ruthless adults. That's where most of this behavior comes from. Not having an example. So she's standing there handcuffed. I won't do it again. But what you have to ask yourself is, if the police hadn't traced the call, you would have done it again. Well, you can't be your children's friend, because that's not the role you're supposed to be playing. You're supposed to be their parent. I'm not saying you can't be friendly to your kid, but my goodness. Your role is to be a parent first and an example to your child. That's your job. Not trying to hang with your kids, drink with your kids, act like a child, get high with your kid, introduce your kids to wrongdoing, nefarious behavior, acts. You need to try to be a parent, a role model. Now, what is the punishment going to be for this child? Will there be any ramifications for the parents? And as far as trying to watch your child 24 hours a day, it's highly impossible. Watching their social media accounts, that will be up to you. But children can get into all sorts of trouble, even under your nose. They could be in another room, video chatting with a grown-up, texting a grown-up, sexting, being lured by a grown-up, being lured by another child right under your nose, and they could be in the same room or another room. You don't know because you're not standing there watching what they're texting. So you need to have a talk with your child about the world. That's what you need to do. You're going to have to get out and up off your butt and have a chit chat with your child about the ways of the world people, the things that people do that are not so nice, following in behind other people, and teaching your child to be an individual, his own and her own individual. That if you feel like something isn't right, don't do it. And as I said, whoever started this challenge, I had not heard of it. You need to have your ass whooped, because this makes no sense for you if you're an adult to do it. So I don't know whoever started this, if they were a child or a teenager or an adult. Whoever started it, you need your tail beat too. And I think our police departments need to have stiffer punishments for any type of nefarious deeds offered by social media. Word of mouth, flyers, whatever. It's all the same. We can trace you back to starting it, passing it along. Your ass goes to jail. Any type of swatting, bullying, harassment, phone calls to police, law enforcement, which is whatever, fire departments, all the same. You go to jail. Ain't no trying to get a lawyer and public defender and plea deals and all that. No. And maybe that's what needs to happen to these children, 11, 12. Because something that a lot of you fail to understand is that a lot of these children do know right from wrong. They know they don't have any business making fake 911 calls. You know what a 911 call is supposed to be for. It's supposed to be for an emergency, not you playing a joke and a prank. That's why she said, oh, I won't do it again. You know, she's not a mentally challenged person. Because in order for you to say I won't do it again means you knew it was wrong in the first place. This is bad, bad, bad. And like I said, this is going to follow her because eventually people are going to know she did it. Her name is going to get out to the public and people are going to know she's the kid that did that. And God forbid there are any other children involved. So now we got to ask that question. Was she in a group of people who decided to take the challenge? Hey, you call Barb, you call John, you call. Let's see how many make the call. Put us on three-way to prove you made the call. See, you don't even know how many kids are involved in this. From her school, neighborhood, or whatever. And as far as the swatting, that's dangerous. Because obviously someone's gotten killed from a swatting. And you put out some felonious allegations against a person to say, oh, they're holding a gun, they're holding somebody hostage, they've got a bomb, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, they're going to somebody's house, roughhousing people for no reason, interrogating people for no reason. People overreact. Now you've got some dead people at their house over a prank. And as you heard earlier, a lot of times this is done to exact revenge against the person. Want something bad to happen to the person. Don't like the person. Because I won't doubt a lot of the swatting is possibly done by adults. But that's what's so scary. Whoever's doing it, sending armed officials to someone's house on fake information. You should know that something bad can happen from that. And that's possibly what you're hoping for. Because you can't say later if you're caught, oh, I didn't want nobody to get shot. I didn't want nobody to get beat up. Some whack job can shoot the police. It can go down a multitude of ways. The world is backwards. And this is why our youth are backwards and they're wayward. It's because they're raised by a lot of wayward people. They are easily intimidated and coerced into doing things. And why, I do not know. Why these children cannot think for themselves. It baffles me every day when I hear such crazy stories of things that children get into. Drinking, driving, drugs, selling drugs, stealing, robbing people, running around with handguns. It's like, can't you think for yourself? Why do you feel like you need to be a part of this phenomenon? Why? What is so glamorous about it? You're watching some stupid video, TV movie, rap video. That is an illusion. And even if there are people out there actually doing it, why do you want to be a part of that? That's what I don't get. That's what I don't get. Why can't people think for themselves. Because as I said, you start out getting into trouble as a child. You continue to get into trouble 9 times out of 10. If you don't straighten up your act, get help, mental help, you're going to be a wayward adult. And then there'll be no Calvary. You may still have people supporting you, but you're going to have to get big boy, big girl punishments. And you may get into something you can't get out of. So it won't matter about having mommy and daddy support you. They can't do anything for you when you're locked behind bars and can't get out. And if you are a wayward, lost adult, stop misleading children and leading children into the abyss because you're jacked up and have jacked up ways. Even if you're doing wrong currently, you still should be instilling in the child to do right. Hey, I'm speaking from experience. You don't want to end up like me. If you're smoking crack, you don't go tell a kid to smoke crack, pop drugs, shoot up heroin. You tell them, no, you don't want to do this because you don't want to end up like me. You're a former addict, alcoholic, fraudster, scammer, thief, whatever. Hey, don't do that. You don't want to end up like how I ended up. Be a mentor. Be a leader. Be an example. Don't ever tell a child to go out here and get into mischief. That is stupid and it's ignorant. Whether you've ever been in trouble or not. That's something you shouldn't even want to carry around, knowing you told a child to go out here and get into trouble. Do something nefarious. Yeah, go break the law. It's ridiculous. And as far as Carly Russell, we're waiting to see what the punishment is going to be as far as ramifications, fines. She's looking to get some fines. I think I read $6,000 in fines. But then we have to see what it will be the legal punishment. I do believe she only hired an attorney because she knew she would possibly be facing legal ramifications, possible jail time. Each count is a Class A misdemeanor, up to 1 year in jail. The counts of charges that she, the laws that she broke. And as I said, I just got a notification that there will be a press conference at 1 p.m. That will be Alabama time, Central time. I'm on Eastern time, so I'm 1 hour ahead of Alabama. So that should be 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I'm not going to hold you all. That's my commentary for today pertaining to Bryan Kohberger. His attorney wants the indictment thrown out. He also says he has an alibi and that evidence was planted by the police. The second part of this live stream is a 11-year-old, has been arrested for calling in a fake kidnapping. And as I said, she says it was about a 14-year-old friend kidnapping, which naturally that was a lie. So then we have to ask, did she give her name? Because in order for you to describe a person, the dispatch would have to ask, well, what is her name? What is her description? So did she give, as I said, a bogus name and a bogus description? Or did she actually give a description of a real friend and gave a real name? I don't know because that information has not been revealed. I want to thank you all for your time. Please have a safe weekend. Stay hydrated. A lot of places are very, very hot and humid in the 100s, places such as Arizona. So please be aware of your surroundings. Stay hydrated. Drink a lot of water. Lots of fruits because they contain a lot of water. Please stay out of the heat. Don't go out in the heat if you do not have to. Cut your grass early morning or late evening, which I'm sure would disturb many people late night. But you understand what I'm saying? You want to do it when the sun is not at its hottest. I will be back with more commentary. I still am behind on the Gilgo Beach serial killer information. Please check out the content of A&E and LMN. They both have documentaries pertaining to this killer. And the A&E has extensive information. So please check out that content. That was my movie recommendation for the week. I also have a weekend movie that's on my community board. I posted it late this morning. Very interesting, weird movie that I watched last night. I believe it's playing on Tubi. please check out that said content. It's a very weird movie. I've been watching some weird stuff lately. But anyway, I want to thank you for your time. And once again, if you'd like to donate to this network, $Beganji129 Cash App, stickers and chats, and welcome to the live stream. I want to wait for this press conference to air, and then we will chop up what happens to this dodo bird, Carly Russell. I hope that the state will give her the max according to the law. She deserves jail time. And if she has 3 charges on the book, then she should get the time allotted per charge, which so far the state's 1 year. So that would be 3 charges. She should get 3 years. She should get fines. She should also get extended probation for about 10 years. Because I do not trust her. And she also needs to pay back monies to the agencies that were involved in searching for her. She'll never have peace. That's for sure. Because I can tell you that when you get burdened with financial troubles, it's hard to be happy when you owe money, and you owe a lot of money. And I'm hoping she has to pay a lot of money back. This will teach her a lesson. You now got to go work to pay back these people because you had nothing better to do than make up a fake crime at the age of 25. You're almost 26 years of age. And this is what you would do in your spare time instead of enjoying your life, being out here, traveling, working, studying, just doing what a 25-year-old do. They live. I'm old enough to be her mother. And I can tell you I have better things to do than sit up here and think of stuff I can make up to go call 911. I don't want to call 911 when I actually have a problem, such as a issue with a neighbor or something, because that shit can backfire on you, even calling the police when you think you're in the right. I don't want my name in the database for calling 911 every 5 seconds. You understand what I'm saying? But I know that you can't resolve things with people because they're so ignorant and they're not going to change. And I can speak from experience currently. And when you have landlord issues and they're ignorant, you're calling the police for what? The police usually can't solve a damn thing because people won't change. That's the point. And the police will tell you with civil matters. Whoa, go talk to your landlord. Go take out a restraining order. Go do this. And you're already back to square one in dealing with two-legged creatures. Sometimes the police, they can't solve a damn thing. And it's sad, but that's the way the world is designed. Conference coming up, press conference pertaining to Carly Russell at 1 p.m. Central Time. I will be here with the said information, everybody. We will see what happens. Will she get time? Probation? Fines? Community service? That's another thing. I think she also should have that added on. And what kind of life is she going to have now? What type of life will she have now? Well, be thankful, Bella. That's when you've lived a pretty good life, when you have not had to call 911 for anything. And I always say, depending on your lifestyle, how you live, the kind of people you live around, your neighborhood, your demographics, that will determine you having to call 911 as well. This is why I keep saying, why I preach to children, stay on the right path so you don't have to go down this road of ever being involved in a crime, witness, God forbid, be around people doing nefarious things, having to call 911 because you're around, the wrong type of people, you feel your life threatened, or you live in a bad neighborhood or a place that has a lot of crime. Be thankful. Because as I said, I've met people who have never had to engage in a life of being around people that stay into trouble all the time. And let me tell you, it was interesting. I've been around people who don't know about breaking the law and being around people that break the law. And it's comforting, to be around them in a nice setting, to live in a nice neighborhood. And they had no idea of what's really out there. They know what's out there, but they haven't had to experience it. And that's the difference. And that's why I said the company you keep, the things you do, the places you go, the people you fraternize with can determine the layout of your life. And this right here is a bad start for an 11-year-old to be going out here doing stupid stuff on a YouTube challenge. A 25-year-old who knows better, 14 years older than a 11-year-old, and you're up here exacting fake crimes. Each one is going to be marked now. How about that? The 11-year-old is now marked, and this 26-year-old woman is now marked over some foolishness that they didn't have no business, they had no business being involved in. And it's a sign that something's wrong with both of them. Adolescent seeking attention and a grown woman seeking attention. And each will possibly have to pay the piper for their actions, as they should. Be an example to a child. Be an example to an adult. Promote wealth, prosperity. Try to promote living right. Like I said, we all make mistakes. But God knows it is healthier for the mind and the spirit when you try to live right and do right by people. Make decisions that's best for you, not something that's going to be the detriment to you and to others. Thank you for your time. You've been listening to the Bald XL. See you in a little bit.